Today we will consider the topic From Trials to Triumph, a journey of faith and purpose. Our scripture reading, Matthew 19:26. Jesus looked at them and said, "With man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible." There was once a young boy named Samuel, born in a small village nestled between hills. His family didn't have much. They lived in a modest home made of brick and thatch, with the roof sometimes leaking when it rained heavily. Samuel's parents were hardworking but struggled to make ends meet. His father worked as a farmer, tending to the land from dawn till dusk, and his mother ran a small sewing business from home. They were kind-hearted people, always helping others in the village, but they never seemed to have enough for themselves. Samuel's life was not one of comfort, but it was a life filled with love. However, Samuel always knew deep down that he was meant for something greater. As a child, he would often watch the village doctor, an older man named Dr. Adair, move through the village with a sense of purpose. Dr. Adair would visit the sick, bring medicine to those who couldn't afford a hospital visit, and even provide free treatments to the children in the village. Samuel was fascinated by the doctor's work. He would ask questions like, "How do you know what medicine to give? How can you help someone who's hurting?" Dr. Adair would smile gently, pat him on the head, and say, "You'll learn, Samuel. You have the heart of a healer." Samuel's dream of becoming a doctor was born in those moments. But how could someone like him, someone born in poverty with no resources, ever become a doctor? The dream seemed impossible. As Samuel grew older, his dream remained clear, but so did the obstacles. His family's financial situation never improved. There were no extra funds for books, let alone tuition. He couldn't afford to attend school beyond the basics. Still, every chance he got, Samuel would read whatever he could find about medicine. He would study the names of plants and herbs, asking his mother to teach him the ways they could be used for healing. He would go to Dr. Adair's house and help out around his office, watching the doctor work, soaking in every piece of knowledge he could. But as much as he worked hard, the challenge of financial insecurity loomed over him. Samuel's parents knew his dreams, but they feared they could never help him achieve them. "Samuel," his father would say, "you're a good boy, but we don't have the means for you to go to school like that. Maybe you should just help me on the farm. It's a good, honest living." His mother would nod in agreement, though her eyes always betrayed the sadness in her heart. There were times when Samuel almost gave up. He had dreams, but reality seemed so harsh. His classmates who had more resources were moving ahead, going to high school, getting college acceptances, while he stayed behind. Yet in those quiet moments when Samuel would kneel by his bedside and pray, he would hold on to the verse his mother always recited to him, "With God, all things are possible." Matthew 19:26. He didn't know how, but he believed it. Samuel would close his eyes and imagine himself helping others, just like Dr. Adair. He imagined becoming a doctor one day, even when everything around him said it was impossible. God was his hope. One day when Samuel was 17, he received a letter from an organization offering a full scholarship to a medical school. The letter was a complete shock. The organization was based in a neighboring city, but the scholarship was available to young people from impoverished backgrounds who had shown determination in their studies. Samuel couldn't believe it. It was a long shot, but he knew he had to try. He filled out the application, writing about his dreams, his love for learning, and the way he had spent years studying the healing arts, even without formal education. He shared his story, how he had always believed God had a purpose for him, even when others didn't see it. He sent the application with a prayer that God would make a way where there seemed to be none. Weeks later, the phone rang. It was the scholarship organization. They had read his application, and they were moved by his story. Samuel was chosen as one of the recipients of the scholarship. He was going to medical school. Samuel left his village for the city. He had never been so far from home, but he had faith. The medical school was far more demanding than anything he had ever faced. He spent long hours studying, sometimes late into the night, barely able to keep his eyes open. His classmates, many of whom came from wealthy families, had access to tutors, the latest textbooks, and resources. Samuel, on the other hand, had only his determination and his unwavering trust in God. He faced moments of doubt, moments when he thought about quitting. He felt small and inadequate compared to his peers. But each time he wanted to give up, he would remember the words from Matthew 19:26. With God, all things are possible. He would remind himself that his circumstances did not define him. What mattered was his heart, his faith, and his willingness to keep going. Samuel prayed often, seeking God's guidance. He made it through the rigorous courses, passing exams, and earning the respect of his professors and classmates. With each passing year, he grew more confident in his ability to become the doctor he had always dreamed of being. The struggles didn't stop, but he had learned that with faith, no challenge was too great. Years later, Samuel stood at the podium, wearing a white coat, ready to receive his medical degree. The room was filled with proud families. The buzz of excitement was palpable. But in that moment, Samuel's heart was filled with gratitude. His journey had not been easy, but it had been worth every step. As he walked across the stage to receive his degree, he thought about his parents, who had sacrificed so much to help him get to this point. He thought about Dr. Adair, who had inspired him from the beginning. He thought about all the times when things seemed impossible, but God had made a way. When Samuel spoke at his graduation ceremony, he shared his testimony with the crowd. "I stand here today because of God's grace," he said. "It wasn't easy. There were times when I doubted myself. There were times when the obstacles seemed too great. But every time I wanted to give up, God reminded me of his promise. He made a way when there was no way. And now I stand here not just as a doctor, but as a testament to what happens when you trust God."